Welcome to the Full Court Press. Some bonus audio, extended show. We've had some shortened shows here lately, so we haven't been able to get into as much detail as we'd like about Utah State, about the NCAA Tournament, what's going on with other Mountain West Conference teams. So Jason and I taking a little extended time in the studio to get into these topics just a little bit deeper. If you heard our show Wednesday afternoon, live. You heard us going through Mountain West Conference teams involved in the postseason, giving our predictions for them. If you missed it, it's available on our podcast feed. But we ran out of time. When we got done, we realized we didn't say anything about San Diego State.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, we went through every Mountain West team that's playing in a postseason tournament, except for the one that has the highest seed, highest ranking of all of them. So
probably spent too much time talking about the CBI, but that's okay.
Yeah, whatever. Who cares?
But yeah, San Diego State, they play tomorrow afternoon, 1:10. One thing that's also of note that we didn't mention, the Utah State game tomorrow morning is on TNT. I should say on Thursday morning. I don't know when you're listening to this, but Thursday morning, the Aggie game will be on TNT. All other Mountain West Conference games on Thursday will be played on Thursday. Well, I guess the Nevada game is Wednesday night. But all Mountain West teams, games involving Mountain West teams in the NCAA tournament in the first round on True TV, which is a little odd.
Yeah, it's the one random network that gets roped into this because there's, 3 or 4 of them? Because you got TNT, CBS has them. And then does NBC run any of them?
No, this is a CBS. They've got the full rights.
So I guess they run some of them on CBS Sports Network then? I feel like there's 3 or 4 different channels, but I can only think of 2 of them off the top of my head. True TV's.
Yeah,
so
TBS.
TBS.
So CBS, TBS, TNT, and True TV.
Yeah.
So CBS Sports Network isn't doing anything, which is really weird.
Yeah, it is weird they wouldn't have it on CBS Sports Network instead of True TV, because one of those is a sports network and one of them is a channel that shows prank shows all day.
TBS will show baseball. TNT, we know they do a lot of NBA.
Yeah, they got the NBA.
They do some baseball.
It's just
they did some hockey.
Yeah, you've got stations that will run sports regularly, and then the prank show channel.
I know. It's so bizarre. But so San Diego State, Aztecs, they've drawn Charleston as their opponent. That'll be Thursday at 1:10 on True TV. And as we know, the Aztecs, one of the best teams defensively in the country. They rank 10th in Ken Pom defensive efficiency. Charleston, pretty balanced. They rank 70th in offensive efficiency, 75th in defensive efficiency. There's some people out there saying that this Charleston team is going to be a bad draw for the Aztecs, but I don't know. I have a hard time seeing that. I just see San Diego State, a very solid defensive team, and when they want to be or need to be, they can be a good offensive team as well.
I think one of the issues is that Charleston is not a good three-point shooting team, and when you're playing such an elite defense like the Aztecs, who also, rebound really well inside, Charleston, they obviously can get a lot of their offense inside the arc. They've been doing that all season, but they're going to have a hard time doing against this elite defense, and that's why I say it's a bad draw for San Diego State. I'd say the opposite. I'd say it's a good draw. This is the kind of matchup they want. A team that they'll have an easier time slowing down because there's something they can exploit there.
Charleston wants San Diego State?
No, San Diego State wants Charleston.
Oh, yeah. I was saying that there's some narrative out there that Charleston is a bad draw for the Aztecs.
Yeah, and I'm saying that the opposite is true.
Yeah, you're saying it's a good draw for the Aztecs.
Yeah, I think it's a good draw for them because, yeah, sure, it's going to be strength against strength, but it's San Diego State's strength has, a good way to shut down Charleston. It's I was talking about on the live show about is New Mexico and UVU, where you have kind of strength against strength, and there's some other instance where there's strength against strength, and talk about how it can make it hard to predict. But in this case, I feel like the difficulty is like how do you predict which team's strength wins out?
Right.
Well, in this case, I feel like there is a logical through line for San Diego State's strength in their team to be better than the strength of Charleston. And I've said strength way too many times in the last 30 seconds. But hopefully I'm getting that point across, is that San Diego State, their identity has, it's like rock, paper, scissors. They've got rock, Charleston, the scissors, and you just go from there. And so I think it's a good matchup. Because initially, I actually picked Charleston to win this. Part of it was, Mountain West bias, in the tournament, just go against them. But then as I just looked at it more and more, I was just like, as I eclipsed that 45 seconds of research mark for all these matchups that I'm doing, it's like, the more I look at this, the more I'm convinced San Diego State should just have an easy time in this one. There's not too many reasons why San Diego State shouldn't be able to win this game.
I'm with you. I think San Diego State should be able to take care of business. I'm trying to find what the line is there. San Diego State is favored by 5. Surprisingly, the over-under set at 141. It seems like a little bit more offense in the game than I would have expected.
Yeah, San Diego State, they can put some points up. In Charleston, they're probably going to get into the 60s. I'd imagine this game probably ends with San Diego State in the high 60s, mid 70s. Charleston anywhere from the high 50s to mid 60s.
I mean, Charleston won 31 games, only lost 3 times all year, but the Aztecs, seeing them multiple times, 3 times up close and personal, watching them play the Aggies, that is a really tough team to beat. And I like the Aztecs. And one thing we didn't do when we were looking at all the Mountain West Conference teams, especially the the NCAA tournament, is looking at how many teams will get wins and how far will they go. So I felt like Nevada would win. You felt like Arizona State would win. So we split there. We split on Boise State and Northwestern. We both feel like Utah State will win. And we both feel like San Diego State will win. If that's the case, even with the ones that we're splitting on, that's a banner year for the Mountain West in wins in the postseason. They won. Nevada won a couple of times in 2018. San Diego State won a couple of times back in 2014. But it's been a while since the Mountain West has won games in the postseason. You have to go back to 2013 as well, where they had multiple teams in the tournament who won. And because you had Nevada specifically get on a little bit of a run, San Diego State specifically get on a run, but you have to go back to 2013 to find a case where multiple teams in the Mountain West won in the NCAA tournament.
And it's kind of remarkable considering you have 2 of your 4 teams are considered underdogs by seeding. And yet, if you look at it on paper, I know you ended up picking Northwestern over Boise State, but you look at Utah State and Boise State in those 7-10 matchups, a lot of these analytical sites that'll kind of have auto previews and have a score prediction like Haslametrics and others, they predict both Boise State and Utah State winning those. Now by narrow margins. By no means they consider them an overwhelming favorite, but to be an underdog in that sense, but also somehow be the favorite, it goes to show the potential of this. Now, potential is just that. It's potential. The Mountain West could get 3 wins, or they could just as easily get 0. And honestly, they could end up with 4. There's a very realistic chance of all 4 teams winning. But as I said, there's also the very likelihood of the opposite. I'd be very surprised if they didn't get at least 1 from San Diego State. That would be very, very disappointing, especially given what I just said about that matchup. How I don't feel like there's much of a chance for Charleston there, but heaven knows the crazy things happen in March. But I do think this is a good chance for the Mountain West to really, get that monkey off their own. We talk about Utah State's monkey on their back of not winning a tournament game in 22 years. The Mountain West has got to get that own monkey off their back because of that reputation they have. They need to have one of these good years to be like, all right, we actually can do things in the tournament, by the way.
Yeah.
So please keep putting us in.
This does validate the Mountain West as a good conference.
Yeah.
And now we've just focused on the first games that are played by these teams. But if you look at the matchups and then what if things happen as we've predicted that we think they will there be more wins than just that? San Diego State, if they beat Charleston, they will face the winner of Virginia and Furman. And that's assuming you go chalk, that'd be San Diego State versus Virginia. And that could be a really interesting matchup, a number 4 versus a number 5. I still got to think that that San Diego State has an opportunity to be a Sweet 16 team. There's been several comments that the ACC was down and has been down this year. So Virginia at a 4 seed maybe doesn't look quite as good as it might in other years.
Yeah, well, in other years, Virginia's like a 1 or a 2 seed. So this is Virginia being down. And that would be an incredibly interesting matchup for a couple of reasons. I think mainly because, Virginia, they're a slow-it-down team. They've generally been one of the slowest teams in the country for quite a while. They play one of the slowest tempos. So you talk about San Diego State maybe bothering teams. They can bother a Charleston. They bothered Utah State. They bothered everybody they played by a slow-it-down, physical, grinded-out tempo. Well, I don't know, what was it that Bane said to Batman? You were raised by darkness, but I was born in it, or something like that. That's what Virginia is saying to San Diego State. It's like, oh, son, you think you play a grinded out tempo? You ain't seen nothing yet. And that could make that interesting. But San Diego State, I know by Ken Palm, they're certainly a lot better than Virginia. I think San Diego State's like 16, 15 or something like that. Virginia's 34. But still, it's a matchup that, unlike the first round, I don't think necessarily favors San Diego State. So I ended up picking Virginia over San Diego State in the second round of my bracket. But who knows? That one will be. I think the key is can the Aztecs do enough offensively? And they've shown moments this year where they're maybe a little bit more offensive-minded than they have been in years past. So that could be really interesting. I think certainly of any Mountain West Conference team getting to the Sweet 16, San Diego State has the best odds, I guess, the best chance. But if you're a Boise State or Utah State and you pull off an upset, as in that 7-10 matchup, your reward for winning that round is to go face one of the number 2 seed teams in the entire bracket. Yeah, you get to go face the 2 best teams out of the Pac-12. That's your reward. Arizona and UCLA. Good luck. Now, I believe UCLA lost one of their players.
Yeah, there's a shoulder injury to one of their key guys, and I don't know what his prognosis is. I think it's not season-ending, but it could cause him to miss some time. So there's a chance, Boise gets a game against the Bruins without one of their key guys.
Yeah, of course, I saw that information and still picked UCLA to go to the Elite Eight just because chaos, because people are going to underestimate UCLA, so I'm going to do that. But watch, they'll end up losing to UNC Asheville because that would just be perfect, wouldn't it? Yeah, we'll see. There's some indication that maybe Utah State could have a chance against Arizona. I know Utah beat Arizona earlier in the year, but still, Wildcats are they're a really good team. They are a really, really good team.
Interesting note on that, and again, take this for what it is, but ESPN has put together some of their bracket predictions. Joe Lunardi and a few others are involved there. And actually, Lunardi is not just picking Utah State to beat Missouri, but he likes them as an upset team to get past Arizona because of the Aggies' elite shooting. And that will keep them in and propel them to multiple victories in the tournament, he believes. And apparently he's not the only one. folks over at The Athletic are also really keen on Utah State and like their odds because of not just for The Athletic, their point of view is not just their elite shooting, but also a very sound defensive team that can make them a tough out and give them some good odds of advancing in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, the Aggies are a popular bucket brass. What did I just say? Bracket
brass?
buster. I just said something, and I'm glad it was at least FCC compliant. Granted, this isn't going over live radio,
this podcast,
so actually I can start swearing all I want. All right, boys, get ready to go. Bracket buster. That's what I was trying to say. The Aggies are a popular pick to be one of those. So take that for what it's worth. Usually those people are wrong because they're trying to be too cute and smart. But heaven knows there's reasons behind why they say that. So maybe they will. And we've seen 10 seeds beat 2 seeds before. I mean, we've seen 15 seeds beat 2 seeds before.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you can hope for, is have Arizona lose to, I was just looking at it and forgot who they're playing, Princeton. Maybe you wind up playing them. But if the Aggies are, if they have that hot shooting, if they were, I said this throughout the entire tournament, is if the Aggies are playing like they were at the end of the season, where they were playing great offense, hot shooting, Taylor Funk's playing really well, Stephen Ashworth's playing well, Max Shulga's playing well, everyone's playing well on offense, and then they play great team defense, then yeah, they can go toe-to-toe with a lot of these teams, even Arizona. Now, they'd have to have a dang good game to beat Arizona.
Yes.
But the Aggies were playing dang good at the end of the season.
Yes, they were.
So they have that potential, but, of course, like with any upset, you have to play at your peak, and they have to not be at their peak.
Yes.
And it's just like, do you think that's going to happen?
I know our good friend John Russell will be very conflicted. He's a big Arizona fan.
Oh, is he?
The other game involving Mountain West teams in the postseason, could they get some extra wins? We already kind of mentioned Boise State, Northwestern. If they can get past them, I don't think they could get past UCLA. But what about Nevada? If they get past Arizona State, their reward is facing TCU. Now, this is an interesting situation here where I think Nevada, if they can get by Arizona State, TCU is kind of in some trouble right now. They've one of their top players is accused the coach of some racially insensitive comments. There are controversies off the court involving TCU, so they might be catching the Horned Frogs at the right time.
I'll be honest, I had not looked into TCU one bit, so that's like the one gap in my research. I just realized when we were talking about, I haven't looked into TCU one bit. So I guess I had them picked to win the first round and then lose to Gonzaga. So my thought was I didn't think Nevada was going to advance beyond the one game, so I didn't bother the effort. Yeah. I didn't bother putting in the effort to see whether or not they'd beat TCU. But I think what you said, I'll just go based off that. That's certainly possible. Maybe TCU overcomes that and they rally together. But if you can't rally together around the coach, then that might be some real trouble. And
yeah.
They may end up going home in a 6-11 upset, which those 6-11 upsets, that's one step away from the 7-10 games we've been talking about with the Broncos and the Aggies. And the Broncos and Aggies are both kind of favored in their games by some metrics. So it's not inconceivable. The main reason that I would really struggle to see Nevada in that is that, well, they're playing games in quick succession. TCU will not. That's why I tend to shy away from these play-in teams beating first-round opponents, because they do get a day of rest, but still.
Right.
Get 2 games in 3 days versus 1 game in like 6 days.
Yeah, I mean, Nevada's playing Wednesday night. Then they got in Dayton, Ohio. Then they have to turn around and where's that game being played?
Denver.
In Denver. Okay, well, it's not too obnoxious, but still
a time zone over.
Yeah, you still have to fly over. You don't get a chance to come home. That's fine, but you're boarding a plane that night, bound for Denver. and you've got just a little bit of time to get in the gym to see what it looks like, do a shoot around, and then you got a game the next day. So it's not a lot of time to prep for TCU.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things working against Nevada in this TCU matchup. Granted, there's a lot of things working against TCU. But, of course, for Nevada, you got to get by Arizona State, and I've already stated my doubts their ability to do that.
Yeah.
Mostly based off of recent trends. I've said before, I think Nevada is every bit as talented enough to win this game. And if this were the Nevada team like a month and a half ago, I'd pick them to win this game outright by, multiple possessions. But there is really something to be said about how you're playing lately. That's why I like the Aggies a little bit more. It's why I like Nevada a little less. And I probably shouldn't like Boise State as much as I do in this matchup, considering they're kind of the same way. But what the heck? It's a time for contradictory logic.
Yeah, that's right. But if the Mountain West gets a couple of wins, not only is it great for the conference to get that monkey off its back, but it could be a significant financial windfall for the conference. They sent 4 teams to the NCAA tournament last year. They've got 4 teams there this year. So last year, they got what are referred to as NCAA units. So for every game that your team appears in, a team from your conference appears in, the NCAA will send you a unit. And you earn.
So that's like a buff dude or something like that?
It's a financial figure, and you get that in installments of a payout every year for 6 years. And so last year, we don't know what the unit value is this year, but last year the value of a NCAA unit was $338,887. Seems like a really weird number, a really weird figure. And that was up about $1,000 over the previous year. Don't know if it's going to grow another $1,000 or if it'll be more than that this season. But it's going to be in that same neighborhood we could expect. So last year, that meant that the Mountain West had 4 active units for 4 teams who participated in 2022. That means the conference will receive $1.355 million annually for the next 6 years. That's over $8 million. And when you keep stacking that, so there were 4 teams that went last year, 4 teams this year, that starts to really stack up and add. And if you get teams that advance and play extra games, that's just more units that are given to or distributed to your conference.
Yeah,
so it's more than just pride and getting a monkey off your back. There's a real financial incentive to win in the NCAA tournament.
And that's the kind of thing that you would hope would help build up the conference to where it's to the point where it really can compete with first you want to compete with the Pac-12, which you could argue that it's kind of doing that to some degree. But even with some of the bigger conferences, just keep getting teams in, keep getting wins, and you can have programs that have better facilities, better recruiting budgets, and ultimately end it with better players and better coaches. And that just builds the conference. Or the conference will just waste that on football. So.
Well, that money can be used for a variety of things, helping with scholarships, travel funds, helping to fund other conference championship events. So that money can be used for a lot of different things.
Yeah, but that, money can be used for a lot of things, or it ends up, if you're already spending enough money on those things, feel like, okay, we don't need to spend any more money on travel. And like I said, it can go to, other things.
Right.
Like I said, the recruiting budgets and facilities and things like that.
Right. But, these are the things that help the Mountain West pay and to have their own funds to organize their own softball championship, to cover the cost to get teams there, to hold an event, pay for referees, arrange hotels. Those things cost money on those non-revenue sports, and this NCAA tournament is a big way that a lot of these athletic budgets get funded. And so that's why it's really important to get some wins. Not just, getting 4 teams, that helps a lot. But if any of them get some additional victories, that also helps in a big way.
It's funny the way they say non-revenue sports when Utah State's football team doesn't even make money.
Well, that's, that's...
Or its basketball team. Utah State's athletic department doesn't make money.
All in the negative. But anyway, it can be a pretty big financial windfall for the conference.
Yeah, it can help actually maybe make Utah State athletic department actually make money.
Yes,
to some degree.
And how that money gets distributed can be different from conference to conference. Because some of them, the conference will keep a good chunk of that, and they'll distribute some to the individual schools. Others, they reward the school more because of their individual success. And I don't know how the Mountain West distributes their units.
My guess is they probably keep a little bit more of it. Because why not? They don't seem like the conference that's super, super duper generous. Because they probably have to pinch a lot of pennies, being a smaller conference and all.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But with bowl games and premier bowl games, they have allowed the school to keep a big, healthy chunk of that revenue as a means to say, hey, you're the one that got there. Congratulations, you deserve the payout.
So maybe they run by the opposite strategy of what I just said. I guess there's two different. One where you can say, all right, be a penny pincher. The other one is we're desperate for everyone to be in the conference with them and keep all their money. Both of those sound really negative.
Please stay.
You put it in a much more positive light than I am.
You're going to keep the money because we want you to stay.
I'm being all pessimistic. The conference is just being there. You go. They're either money grubbing or desperate. Those are my two options for what the conference is. Yours, they're praising the teams for actually getting there. We can see who here is optimistic and who here is not.
Yeah. There you go. Well, look, I think this will be a good tournament for the Mountain West.
Famous last words.
I hope not. I hope they just jinx everybody.
You did.
But the net rankings, just the solid teams, solid opponents, the offensive, defensive efficiencies from the teams that are there, it's really, really strong for the conference. But for a number of these teams, they played well against good teams, but now they're going to be playing against some really good teams. And so how deep are you? Can you win in different ways? And what lessons were learned in those games that got away from you? And for Utah State, they showed they could win in the conference tournament in a vastly different way when you compare New Mexico, the game against New Mexico, compared to Boise State. They, with a little bit more rest, would it be a different outcome against San Diego State? Maybe. But you could see that the Aggies, a lot of the national stuff on Utah State is, well, they're an elite three-point shooting team. You take away the three and they're going to lose. That's not always been the case. Utah State has proven that it can win in other ways. And can they still do that tomorrow? Can they do that on Thursday? If Taylor Funk isn't going, can they still get a win? Those are some of the big questions about Utah State going into the tournament.
Yeah, and I question Utah State's ability to go super deep, partly because of the depth, but depth's not really going to matter in just one game. Where Utah State fell short in terms of depth was the fact they couldn't win 3 games in 3 days against teams that were a little deeper than they were. When it's just a one-off against Missouri, okay, you can just play 5 players the entire game. If they play well enough, they can do it. But if they did beat Missouri, then okay, depth begins to become a bit more of a point. Maybe not a crucial point, but maybe a little bit. And they do get 1 day of rest in between if they were to win there. But it could come a little bit more into play against, it would be an even tougher opponent in Arizona, presumably. And then after that, there's usually enough rest days in between all these. But still, that's a lot of games to win in quick succession. That's where depth can get to Utah State. And the one-off, not really concerned about it. If you get into foul trouble, okay, that can maybe be part of that game where, okay, maybe Ashworth picks up 3 fouls in the first half. That might cause a problem. But you can't predict that kind of thing.
No. Yeah, it can't be something that like Missouri as an opponent, for example, needs to rely on.
Yeah, and you shouldn't rely on trying to force teams to use their depth. So I think Utah State will be fine in terms of their depth through the one game. We'll see how that may impact them if they manage to advance. That's a big if. I'm going to show some of the Missouri spirit, oddly enough, with Utah State, and I'm going to say they got to show me. Show me what's going on. For those who don't understand, Missouri is the show me
Show me state. That's right.
I don't know how many people know that. But so, oddly enough, I want to see the Missouri, factoring some Missouri spirit to see if Utah State can beat Missouri.
And Missouri is a team that's, you might be able to say, is a little more battle-tested than Utah State.
They completely are.
Is there a state that's battle-born? Is their state nickname?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
None of the states are really battle-born except like Texas, I think.
What's Nevada's state motto?
I don't know.
I don't know.
The lucky state? I don't know.
But you look at...
I think they're the silver state, actually.
Oh, that may be true.
Yeah.
But
Missouri, though, you talk about and that's one of the things that worries me is when we talk about Missouri's defense. I don't know, we've talked about this already, but the fact that their defense is lower rated, but the fact that half of their opponents this year are like quad one, top 25 teams, those are the offenses Missouri has been facing all year. Is their defense really that bad? Or is it a product of who they're facing? Now, some of these advanced metrics try to take that into account. But there's only so much they can do with that.
Sorry, I'm smiling because Battleborn is the Nevada motto.
Oh, really?
Because they joined the Union during the Civil War.
Oh, did they?
Yes.
Like 1863? I had like a 1 in 4 chance of getting that. Or is it 64? Well, 63 or 64?
Now I've got to find it.
Because we got like 1861 to 1865.
They became a state. Oh, come on. Where is it?
Come on.
Now we're really getting off topic.
We're having a history lesson here.
1861.
Oh, that's like the very beginning. Hadn't even begun fighting yet.
Oh, sorry, no. Statehood in 1864.
Okay, that really is that's the other end. They'd been fighting for a while. They were getting close to the end there. So that really is. Of course, none of the fighting was happening in Nevada.
No, nothing was happening in Nevada.
I mean, what, at most they had a couple skirmishes out west. They barely made it past the Mississippi in the Civil War.
Yeah. No, but Missouri team, it plays in the SEC. It's a good conference. All of their losses were quad one losses. They did not lose to anybody below quad one.
It's a good thing that Utah State's a quad one team.
Yes, that's true.
Otherwise, they'd be in trouble here.
7-8 in quad one games.
7-8.
Excuse me, 7-8 versus NCAA tournament bound teams.
I'll say they were 6-9 last I checked versus quad one.
Yeah, so I'm looking at my notes are off here, but 7-8 against teams that are in the NCAA tournament. 2-1 against teams in the NIT. No, they played well against Tennessee, the regular season, and then in the tournament beat Tennessee twice.
They beat them in the tournament.
But they lost to Texas A&M twice, Alabama twice, Arkansas they split, Mississippi State they split. But they've played teams like Kansas and Illinois and Kentucky. So they've played some very notable teams. Kansas is a 1 seed. Alabama is a 1 seed. Tennessee is a 4 seed. Kentucky is a 6 seed. Iowa State is a 6 seed. So they've played some tough teams this year.
Yeah, and that is one of the biggest things that worries me about this game. Is you can talk about all the stuff on paper, but that's the stuff that comes into play in practice. We've played the best teams, and you're not one of the best teams. Utah State's not an Arkansas. They're not a Kansas. They're not Alabama.
It's
Tennessee.
not an Alabama. No,
just they're not. It's not to say they can't win, but it's just one of those things that makes me real nervous.
Yeah. So, again, full broadcast coverage of the NCAA tournament will be on 106.9 The Fan, on AM, and on 1390, 106.9 FM. It'll be full coverage for the first four. We had games Tuesday night, got games on Wednesday night. We've got a full day Thursday and Friday, and second round action Saturday and Sunday. Picks up again next week, and we'll have the full coverage of all the games here on 106.9 The Fan. But Jason, I think that's about it for our bonus coverage.
Yeah, when we started going through a history lesson as to when Nevada got into the U.S., we were starting to run dry on content there. But yeah, there's a lot going on this weekend, so glad we could talk a little bit more about it, even though we have to sacrifice some of our live show on the altar of the NCAA tournament.
Yes. By the way, I should have flipped the page. I'd mentioned Missouri 7-8 versus teams in the NCAA tournament. Utah State 4-5 against teams in the NCAA tournament.
So, similar record, just few less games.
Right. Utah State 5-0 against teams in the NIT. So Utah State's faced some decent teams.
I was going to say completely worthless, considering they will not face any teams in the NIT the rest of this year.
No, that's true. That's true. Thanks for tuning in and joining our bonus audio here on the 106.9 The Fan podcast feed. And no show for the next couple of days. We'll be back on the air live on Monday afternoon, 4 o'clock on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan.